Hello, hello, good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Entrepreneurs Unplugged. As always, I have to do the checks to make sure that we are live in all the places that we're supposed to be live. So give me just a moment. Facebook is comical because we are live, but it's private and no one can see it but me. And so I have to always edit that. And then Instagram has its own little quirks. And so
Mhm.
that's fun. And let's see. So let me change the audience on Facebook so people can actually see us. Done. And LinkedIn, we are live there. Oh, so it's talking back. All right. Now it's real.
Yay!
Now it is real. So I am Tanisha Stallnaker, CEO of SVS. We are your systems and automation and process team. I am so excited to be here today with Ryann Dowdy for a multitude of reasons. As always, I have to give a couple of disclaimers. So the dog has had a nap. He's been asleep for a few hours now. He slept through the first lab, which means this is the one that he's going to tear up. And so we're going to hope for the best. Hubby has not been home for lunch, which means he could come busting in the door at any moment.
Perfect.
And so, yeah, um, I will mute if needed when all hell breaks loose. So I always have to give the disclaimer of life lifing, hence the unplugged part. So, but that aside, I'm so excited to have Ryann Dowdy here with me. Ryann and I connected, it's been what, maybe 3.5 years ago?
Yeah.
And I was following Ryann and listening to like coaching things and lives and sales topics and all of this, and I've literally just stalked her this whole way since then. And so I've learned so much just even being the stalker from her, and so I'm just excited that she was willing to join us today. So Ryann, please introduce yourself.
Yes. Well, I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much. So my name is Ryann Dowdy. I am the founder of the Connection Agency. I have a huge heart for helping business owners find a way to sell more of their stuff in a way that feels good to them.
Yay, yay. All right, so you chose a different topic that we've not had yet, which
Yeah.
was success stories and lessons learned. And
Mhm.
so I'm curious, why that topic?
Well, I just think that there's so much value in hearing other people's stories, right? Because especially it's so interesting, the dichotomy of social media, right? Like we're surrounded by people but alone all the time.
Yep.
And so it's really easy to feel like you're alone, nobody else is experiencing this, nobody understands me. And then also I love the lesson learned piece because, again, we're really great at telling our success stories, but um all of us know that there's not everything is perfect all of the time, right? Butterflies and rainbows are not a real life thing. That's just for Instagram. So I love sharing those things.
I love that. That's actually one of the driving forces of me starting this series
Sure.
was one, I typically stay hidden in a dark cave in my house on a regular basis. So it was visibility, but the other part was just having real conversation
Sure.
that's not scripted. When somebody's like, what talking point should I have? I was like, none. I want you to pick something you can talk about and have a natural conversation about, because I got so sick of seeing the super polished, you know,
Right.
every business is hard, but I've overcome it. And now I'm like multiple 7 figures a week business owner, and it's
Right.
great. And you just have to do these 3 things. And so I just was done with it. And so I was like, I wanted to have conversations with real humans and real people that
Yep.
have real businesses and life happening at the same time. And
Mhm.
just, kind of see where those conversations go.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to be here.
So, all right, when it comes to, where do you want to start? Success stories or lessons learned?
Let's start with lessons learned.
Yeah, I got some. So, first off, I guess just to kind of give some background, how
Sure.
long have you had your business?
I started my business in 2019. Well, the idea was born in 2018. I think we were probably didn't make money until 2019, and then I've been a full-time entrepreneur since 2019.
I need to remember that, because I think, add another year, and excuse me, because I got to put it.
Hmm.
I started, and then I started making money the next year. So that's a much better way than what I normally say, which is like that first year was like a practice year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I like to say, like when I tell the whole story, it's like I spent all of 2018 like getting ready to get ready and like learning about online entrepreneurship and how different that was from my corporate career and this wild space that didn't exist to me before that time. And so like, I really honestly think in like 2018, we made like $3,000, right? So it was like 2019 was the year that we had our first 6-figure year. I left my full-time job, and, have been riding the roller coaster ever since, my friend.
The wild, wild west of business.
Amen.
So I guess if you could think back,
Mm-hmm.
what was either your first lesson learned
Mm-hmm.
or your most memorable, like the one that to this day it's like a little PTSD still?
Yeah. That everything on the internet is made up. No, I'm just kidding. But I do think that the biggest lesson learned for me was, everybody's living kind of their own story, and what is going on in other people's lives and other people's businesses really has very little to do with you, and I think that that was a really hard lesson, because I grew up in a corporate environment, right, where it was like, the trajectory was to watch the people ahead of you and model what they were doing, right? Like that's as good as, career advancement got in my career. It was like, oh, I want that person's job. What did that person do? So when I went into the online space, that was what I was like, I want to find somebody doing what I want to do. And I want to watch that person and do what that person did. And I actually wound up in complete and total burnout because of that, right? Like I built my first iteration of my business to literally be a carbon copy of my then mentors. And, it was great. We made money, we were profitable. All of those things were great, but it did not take into consideration any of the things that, I wanted long-term. Essentially I left the corporate world and then just created a job for myself and my business by mirroring somebody else's business practice and style and model and the way that they showed up. And again, it created a lot of burnout and a lot of overwhelm and I wound up with a very expensive business with a very big team and all of those different things. And never really sat down and stopped to ask myself the questions, Tanisha, of like, what do I want? What do I want this thing to look like in 3 years or 5 years? Right. Like, what profitability, what would that look like? Like how big of a team am I willing to lead and manage? How much time do I want to work? What kind of clients, do we want to be like really high touch or hands, like all those things. I never asked myself those questions. Like my number one focus was get out of my corporate job. And I was like, okay, cool. And so I just wound up recreating a job for myself, my first 3 years of entrepreneurship, essentially.
I did the job. I was employing myself very much so,
Right.
especially the first year, which is the irony of making zero, like not zero, but might as well have been zero money that first year, is
Right.
putting in so many hours, answering questions at 11 p.m.,
Right.
being always available
Yep.
as one human. It didn't matter where we were. We could be at the mall and I'm answering client questions. There was no time that I was off.
Yeah.
And it took a couple things. It took me having a bit of a breakdown.
Yeah.
And then it took my husband asking. He was like, I thought the whole reason you were doing this was to get out of this overwhelmed feeling of being exhausted and having to be always on, because you were like that when you worked in corporate.
Yeah.
So he was like, for all of that, why didn't you just go get another job when you got laid off? And it was like that knock in the head of, and there is a valid point you make, sir. And so it's been, not to say that there still aren't times where it's hectic or overwhelming or whatever, but I constantly remind myself that I do have choices.
Yes.
As far as where I put my time, who I spend my time with, types of clients that I work with, the team members that I keep around, so reminding myself of that decision that's in there,
Yep.
has been very, very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree.
So I know it's funny to hear you say that you modeled your business after someone else's. I think I thought I was going to try to do that, but quite honestly, I tend to be a little stubborn, and that can be a plus and a minus.
Sure.
Because I think for me, the first year when I was looking for these programs and stuff like that, and I was paying into programs and buying courses, because, when I started business, online courses were skyrocketing, especially then when you add the pandemic to it, everybody had a course. And so I'm spending thousands of dollars on this course and thousands of dollars on this course, never once considering the fact that my attention span is about this long and I'm not going to finish this course.
Mm-hmm.
And I can say in nearly 5 years, I don't think I finished a course yet. And
Yeah,
so, but I spent so much money hoping that one of these things, I guess in the first 3 modules at least, was going to provide some miracle
sure.
of if I just do these things, then
Yep.
clients fall out of the sky, money is raining down on me.
Yeah.
It's lollipops and unicorns every day. And I think one of my first big lessons was that, you joked about it, but everything on the internet is fake.
Yeah.
Um, and I started to realize that a lot of these businesses and these coaches that I was following in the beginning, I'm not going to, they weren't, well, there was a lot of horse crap there. It was a lot of like smoke and mirrors and Pied Pipering, where they were just super charismatic people that
Mhm.
could attract people to them,
Sure.
but there was no actual substance there.
Sure.
And so it was a hard lesson because then it made me jaded to where it was like everybody I met, it's like,
Yeah.
scammer.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's like I said, it's a plus and a minus because that lesson was like using discernment, but not using so much that I also
Right.
miss opportunities because of that. So
Sure.
what
Yeah. But I think like there were a lot of people that I agree with you in 2020, 2021 who built programs and courses and things like that. And the thing I try to remind myself, because similar to you, right, where everybody's like, oh, all these people were scamming people. And I like to believe, and I don't know if this is true, but it's a belief that helps me sleep at night, is that like everybody's working from the best of intentions. And there were people teaching people to do that.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's what it is. Just package up your knowledge and sell it, And so I honestly think that like I follow a person who, teaches people how to, or used to teach people how to be virtual assistants. And she was like, get the client and then go to YouTube and teach yourself how to do the thing they just hired you to do. Right. Like that was literally, and I was like, excuse me? Like if I hire somebody to build my website, I expect them to know how to do it before I give them my money, not after. Right. But again, knowing what I know about this person is that was not really her intention, right? It wasn't like pick a subject you know nothing about and learn. That's not what she meant, but that's what people heard.
Yeah.
What she was saying is like, if you've never actually built a website, but you've tinkered around enough, like
resources.
there are resources to help you get better at building a website. Like I think that's what she was saying, but that's not what people heard. And so again, I had to look at her intention was not to go rip people off. That was not what she was telling people, but again, that same idea of a discernment and taking things very literally. So I just have to remember that sometimes when I'm like, oh, that person was full of baloney, right? But it's like, I don't think, because that's what somebody on the internet told them to do and they didn't know any different or better. And so I try to remember that sometimes when people are like, oh, well, I've been ripped off 800 times. And I'm like, but at some point, it's your own responsibility, one. And two, I don't think that most humans set out to screw people over. I think that just they get in over their head. And like, that's what happened with my mentor who wound up becoming my business partner. That partnership was atrocious. And I think that's what happened to her. Her business exploded overnight. And instead of pushing pause and fixing the back of the house, she was like, we're just going to power through. And it did not go well. But I again believe at the very beginning that her intention was to help people.
Yeah.
Like I do think that because when I joined her program, it was really good and it was a great value and I learned a lot of things, but people who joined much later and paid much more had a very different experience. But like I said, I think we all start out with the best of intentions. And then I don't know if it's money. I don't know if it's ego. I don't know what happened to that person in particular. But I mean, I think that sometimes, just the wheels fall off. But I always try to remind myself that like people have the best of intentions.
I think money, of course, ego for some.
Sure.
But then I think also, if we look at, 2020 and 2021, and of course, then lingering into 2023 now this year, having this major life event happen across the world with this pandemic, it gave people so much more opportunity. Like I think about my business and I always say, with the preface of this, it's not worth anybody's life, but the pandemic being what it is, helped my business grow for me to quickly figure out where I had value because there was something that my clients at the time, none of them had really worked virtually and I'd worked virtually for years. So it was like, oh, I can take care of this for you. I can train you to do this. Of course, we can take this and transition it over. You know,
Right.
it's safe over here, and virtual is
Yeah.
great. And so, but without the pandemic, not to say I would have not eventually found where I had value. I
Yeah.
don't know how much longer it would have taken,
Sure.
but I think that now there's this weird residual hangover effect from those couple of years where those 2 years were like magic years where you could accidentally be successful because everybody was in the house and home and trying it
Mhm.
out, and everybody was trying to run a business, and everybody was starting and playing business owner because they were home. And even if
Yeah.
they had a full-time job, they were working remotely so they could try to do some things on the side. And then they went back in the office and things went out the window, or they got scammed, or at least they felt like they got scammed and they got burnt out, or I mean, for a multitude of things. And then you
Mhm.
have politics, and just the world has been
Right.
going batshit crazy for the last couple of years.
Totally.
And so now I think there's this like residual effect.
Mhm.
And so I think that for a lot of people, that has some effect too, where yes, they day one and days 362, they were really had the best of intentions. And then like something went a little wonky.
Yeah.
So it's been like an exposure year for a lot of
Yeah.
businesses this last year and a half.
Well, I also think that a lot of people realize that, business ownership isn't for everybody, right? Again, in those years, it felt like it was for everybody. Everybody could find a way to make money. Everybody can find a way to be successful. And, as time progresses, it's like not everybody is designed to work alone, right? Like not everybody is designed to be a decision maker. Not everybody is designed to take big risks,
Yeah.
right? Like not everybody is designed to do that. Um, and that's okay, right? Like I think there was so much shaming of people who went back to work,
Yeah.
like, and I was like, dude, no, like do what's best for your family. F the internet, like do what you need to do for yourself. But I think that's something that happened too. Like, back in 19 and 2020, everyone was like, everybody can be a business owner. Like if you have skills, you can turn it into a business. And now there's some people that are like, no, I don't want that. So I think that that's really interesting too. And, speaking of lessons learned is learning, because I think I probably told people that. And I was like, of course it's a marketable skill. People would pay that without having the knowledge and the experience to be like, yeah, but do
Yeah.
you have the mindset, the tenacity, the grit to dig and dig and dig, because that's what happens here, So, but I didn't know that at the time. It just, again, at right place, right time, right skill set. And, I was off to the races, which was amazing. And then of course, got a little arrogant in the way of like, anybody can do this. It wasn't that hard, and then it's like, oh yeah. Cause we were in a very, specific circumstance in a very specific environment that created that. And now it's like, the rubber hits the road, or,
Yeah.
that sort of stuff.
Absolutely. So let's talk success story.
Yes. Success story. So I've had a really interesting ride where externally I have always, been successful, right? Like, we went from 100, I think 120,000, it was like 118, 530 to 1.2 million, right? From 1920 to 21. And then the wheels fell off, right? My partnership fell apart and I slid back, and I think I had a $350,000 year. And I understand that a $350,000 year is still a stellar year. Right. But I felt like a massive failure because of this backslide. Right. I had also invested at the level of somebody running a 7-figure business and wasn't anymore. So I was in a really big financial pickle. And it like destroyed me internally. And I don't know if I ever said that out loud. So there you go, friends. Like it really did destroy a lot in my life. And we'll get to the success story part in a moment. But it really had me thinking about like, who am I? Like, what am I doing? What do I want to do? And being okay with trying on different hats, right? Like I had a women's mastermind for a little while that I really loved. And then I discovered that I actually really like business. And then we launched an agency. And then I was like, oh, done for you work is not for me. Right. And like, it's learning those things. And so now I'm finally in a place where like, I feel more whole and excited and all in than I've been in a really, really long time. We just relaunched a sales training program where we are working in like the mindset and energetics with like the tactic and strategies of sales to bring them together. Cause it's all the lessons I've learned over the last 5 years, right? Where I was like, why can kind of what you said, why can 200 women went through my first program, right?
Yeah.
And probably only about 10% of them actually went on to build multiple 6-figure businesses. Some that wasn't their goal, right? And then we had some women who did nothing with the information or were not successful. And I kept asking myself, like, why, right? Like, why was this person able to go on and is now running a $400,000 a year agency, and this person couldn't sign one client? They all had access to the same information, right? And so I did a lot of inner work, the personal development journey of what happened and all that different stuff led me to a place where like, now I finally am like, okay, like I don't feel like I'm throwing spaghetti at the wall anymore. And I feel really good about where I'm at. And I share that because first of all, we're still 5 years in, friends. Like it wasn't like I started this last week. So I think that's an important message for all of you in the lesson learned side. But then also on the success side is like, for me, it was, I could have packed my toys up and gone home a long time ago, right? Like I'm not employable like as a human, but like my skill set is very employable, right? There are plenty of people who would hire me tomorrow and I could stop with all the noise. But like, to me, the success was like, no, this is what I want. And this is what I desire. And so I feel like my persistence and my tenacity of not letting the outside crap send me, back to corporate, not because there's anything wrong with going back to corporate, but because that wasn't actually what I wanted, So I feel like that's probably my biggest success in the moment is not giving up and, being willing to try over and over and over again and being willing to keep reinventing and keep taking risks despite, a lot of things that, might have sent somebody else to an insane asylum.
Well, I appreciate you being so open, first of all, because I relate quite a bit.
Sure.
Especially like, the not employable as a human, but employable in skill.
Yeah.
When things have gotten hard, and I've definitely had some hard and expensive lessons.
Totally.
But I always remind myself where I'm like, the days that I'm beating myself up, like, okay, so you're a failure. you
right.
failed to this whole thing. But then it's like the idea of going to a job.
Yeah.
It's a visceral reaction of, oh, no, get your ass back in there. Because I think about how physically ill I was driving to work and trying to get myself in the building and the tears in the parking lot. And it was like, so yeah, it might not be the way I want it to be every single day, but it's not that on any day.
Yep.
And so there is a win there.
Yeah.
But even just the motivation you've accidentally given me and the idea of like, you see this growth and then you see it go backward.
Yeah.
And then it's like, what is happening?
Yeah.
We're still offering the same level of great service, what just happened, and it feels like the rug got pulled out up from under you and you hadn't done anything different, as far as like doing anything wrong. But it's like, so that's us this year where it's like, my CFO is like, you're doing well. And I'm like, yeah, but not as well as this time last year. So I have to like try to really, really, really remind myself, that it's still April.
Right.
But it's okay to have to course correct even at this stage. And it's a constant reminder.
Yeah.
I have to do that. And thank you, Leonard, for the shout out. So I appreciate that.
Yes. And you're absolutely like, and part of it was like, I just took failure out of my vocabulary, right? Like there's no such thing as failure, right? Like, even if I were to go get a job tomorrow, like, some people would see that as failure. And to me, it's like the shit that I've learned, like I've become an entirely different human in the last 5 years. And nobody can take that away from you. Like nobody can take the experience. Nobody can take the lessons. Nobody can take that grit and tenacity away from you. And so like, for me, I was like, we just took failure out of my vocabulary. Like, that's not a thing. Like the game is not over. I am still alive. Like, I still have these humans that I'm supposed to keep alive with these like kids and stuff, like there's no such thing as failure. Because again, there's people making a shit ton of money that think there's a failure, and there's people making $0 calling themselves a failure. And neither one of them, at the end of the day, if you're still kicking and you're still doing the work and you're still following your heart and you're still doing the best you can every single day, you're not failing. And I think that's a really great point, because that's what we're all afraid of, right? We're all afraid of failure, but like, failure anyway. Like, what does that even mean?
Well, as somebody who has a sky high fear of failure.
Of course. Tell me, like, what does failure mean to you, Tanisha?
Well, it's funny when you put it in that way. I don't even really have a solid answer.
Exactly.
Aside from, I guess, to me, failure looks like whatever landmark I just set.
Yeah.
Me not hitting it the way that I said it.
Sure.
And now that I say it out loud, it's kind of comical because I'm not a step-by-step planner.
No.
So I have like a goal. I know what the goal is.
Of course.
Do I sit here and plan out all of the steps in between? Absolutely not. And
Yep.
so sometimes I'm like, why am I beating myself up for something that I literally didn't make a blueprint for anyway? It's that spaghetti thing of like $500,000 this year, and then let's see what happens. And then if it doesn't happen, it's like, oh, I'm a failure. But then it's like, well,
right.
You made more than last year.
Or you're still in business, like there's all these things where, like I said, I think success and failure are so arbitrary because they're, like I said, I am aware when I talk about having a $350,000 year and sounding like and feeling like a failure to somebody is like, what is wrong with you? Right. Like, so it's,
though that you point that out, because in the first year of business, the term was, let me show you how to scale and you can have a 6-figure business, and then if you really were listening to somebody, you had a multiple 6-figure business. Mm-hmm. And then it was like, let me show you how to make 5K months. And so that's what I had in my head was, okay, I need a 5K month because apparently that's the time, is when you have like $5,000 a month coming in, you're rolling in it. And I didn't even notice when I made $5,000
right
the first time. It was a few months later that I happened to look at something and I was like, oh, yeah, that happened. I did it again. So I was like, all right, well, this doesn't feel like I'm rolling in dough here.
No.
So maybe it's a 10K month. The 10K month came and went.
Yep.
There was a few more months left. And I even said it to my husband. I was like, am I reading this right? He's like, it looks like you're making like over $10,000 a month. And he was like, that's cool. I said, yeah, but it's weird. I didn't notice. And so he was like, how did you not notice? I was like, I don't know. I guess because life is still lifing and I don't see myself bathing in money here. And so I was like, all right, so maybe it's not 10K. So then it's like, maybe it's 20K. So then here comes the 20K month. And it's like, this is it. But with that 20K month also came 20K month investments.
Yeah.
And rebranding and all of these things. And, I told my husband, I was like, if you'd have told me that I would sneeze at a 20K month.
Right.
First off, I would have thought you were crazy.
Yep.
Secondly, if you would have told me that I invested, and I really have to hold on to this word, over $40,000 last year for a rebrand, and half of it didn't go well, I would have been like, you are a psychopath. You just blew $40,000 and insert psychopath here. And so it's one of those things where it's like, I've done all of those things and yes, it stung. It stung, but I'm still sitting here. The business is still standing. And, so I've now stopped, not to say I don't set financial goals, because that's not true.
Of course.
But I stopped listening to the marketing message of financial goals. To be successful, again, it's 6 figures, it's multiple 6 figures, it's 7 figures, it's 6-figure quarters. And, I see it all the time and I literally have to like, just tune it out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, at this point, I've just defined success, continuing to be in business. But for me, the whole goal of doing this was so that I could, like, my husband could retire. And it doesn't mean that, because I had somebody get offended when I say that. They were like, you're doing this just so you can retire your husband. I was like, he's a police officer. I can't wait till he retires. That doesn't mean he'll never work again. But I want us to be on an island somewhere, and I could do this business from anywhere with an internet signal. But I'm
Right.
like, I want to be able to have that flexibility and freedom for us to just on a whim pick up and go wherever we want to go.
Well,
But
and not to mention, his safety. Your husband has a dangerous job, right? Like for you to not have to want him to go out to that dangerous job for the security and the paycheck and the benefits and all of those things feels pretty normal to me, my friend.
yeah, it's funny. I remember I'm not going to say lost. Someone didn't hire me once and they were a potential client, but that's what she was just like, I was just very offended that you said you wanted to retire your husband. I was like, oh, we are not aligned.
No.
We are not. Nope. Just go. Just carry your things and go. Good luck. Good luck to you.
Yeah.
But, people are weird. So
They are. They are. Yes. That type of freedom is everything. Looking at the comments. Yeah. The type of freedom to choice. Because and that's what I think, like when you say success, I think that's what most of us are chasing, right? The freedom of choice.
Yeah.
Right. The freedom of choice to say yes to a client or say no to a client, the choice to, go on the vacation if you want to, the choice to not work on Fridays, the choice to, so Thursdays, my kids, so I'm separated going through a divorce. So my kids are at their dad's. And so Thursday mornings, it's like, I can start my mornings really slow and do all of those things. And the freedom to do that, like the freedom to get up, like this morning I got up. I mean, I still get up at the same time because my body wakes me up, but I got up, it was raining. I was going to take the dogs for a walk, but it's pouring rain. So I literally got a cup of coffee and I sat in a chair and I read a book for 40 minutes, right? Like it was lovely, a fiction book at that. Right. And it was really lovely. And so to me, when I think of what is success, it's the choice to do that, right? To not feel like I have to rush out the door and get somewhere or rush to my computer to get something done. So, but I've had to redefine that too. Like I got so caught up in, all of the stuff, right? The money and the achievements and the masterminds and the travels and the getting in the right room. And then you get in those rooms and you're like, those people are also a hot mess, right? Like we think it's
frauds.
What?
It's like you get in those rooms and you're like, everybody in here is a liar,
Or just like, there's just not a dollar amount of which you have your shit together. Like as humans, like maybe that's just not a thing of ever feeling like, oh, I totally understand. And I totally know what I'm doing. And I'm totally confident. Like, and not that we can't have, we all have moments of confidence, right? But I think we're all chasing something that doesn't exist. And I honestly think when you tell me what's my biggest success story is the ability to really dig through that for myself and redefine success in a way that is not simply tied to money or simply tied to an external thing. And it was for me, in 2021, 100%. My business partner was very much like that. That was kind of her thing. So again, I had mirrored my business and my kind of how I learned about online entrepreneurship came up in her area or her arena with her kind of mentorship and guidance, getting out from underneath that and being like, yeah, no, I don't think I want those things.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just a matter of it wasn't as important as it once was, right? One of the things that was on my list was a G-Wagon, right? I really wanted a G-Wagon. And now I just think of, I can't put my kids in a $250,000 car, so we're probably not going to buy one of those.
For me, it's just going back to being debt free, and it's I was like, I don't even care what the car is. Just
no, but that's what I'm saying.
I'm saying for me, it wasn't the thing. It was just, I told my husband, if you really want to be honest here with me, I would pay off debt, sell all of our houses.
Yeah.
And we would just be floating, which of course makes him cringe
Sure.
every single time I say it, but, I was like, there has to be a happy medium somewhere between having a grounded place, but then also being able to be in the wind and still take care of life and all of that. I appreciate the reminder, and that's what I'm going to take it as, to notice the successes that are there every day.
Mm-hmm.
Because the challenge, the couple things, being in an online business versus a brick and mortar business, the distractions are so much louder online.
Sure.
Because it's like that Boiler Room movie where everybody can be the most successful CEO that their keyboard says they could be. And you don't know whether they're full of shit or not, but there's so much noise that's there versus when you're in brick and mortar, it's just different, And so that's one thing that tends to, I think, get in the way sometimes of recognizing the successes of your own successes or wins is because you're so busy looking at all the distractions from everybody
Right.
else. But then also being like, for me with my team, they're more of the implementation side and I'm more strategy.
Yeah.
And even with my clients one-to-one, my brain is strategy, which means I'm pretty good about going 10 steps ahead, even in life with the swim team stuff. Like you can give me a situation and I've already played out like 7 scenarios.
Right.
You know, the challenge with having that kind of brain though, is that I'm going to miss the thing that
Yeah.
happened
Right.
today, you
Mhm.
know? Even this year or even towards the end of last year where I said like in a post, where it's like, I'm actually a leader.
Yeah.
I've been called a leader the majority of my life and I
Sure.
always shy from it where it's like, no, I'm okay. It's good,
Right.
Now it's like, I don't know why I'm shying from it because people keep
Yeah.
bringing it to me. So I'm a leader. There,
Right.
that's all there is to it. I spent a few years questioning, do I really know what I'm doing?
Right.
Why do people still pay me money? And so it's like, yes, I know what the hell I'm doing. We've been doing it. We've done it very well. And so now I've been forcing myself to mentally slow down enough to
Mhm.
be able to say, you know, you've onboarded this many clients. You have a team that's still here year after year, and they're contractors. All of these things that I appreciate, but still kind of not take for granted, but it's like not in the forefront of my brain when
Right.
hard days are there, you know.
Mhm.
And so I appreciate the reminder
Yeah.
that I do have choices and I actually, make them regularly as far as when I need to tap out and go to
Yeah.
the gym or say no to
Yes.
things that are in front of me or say yes to things. My plate stays full and people always question like, oh, you're doing too much, you're doing so much. And I was like, well, 9 times out of 10, anything that I'm doing, 9 times out of 10, there's always that one is something that I've chosen to do because I really want to do it.
Yep.
Even if it means I'm doing 15 things in that day, it's because I chose those 15 things.
Totally.
Versus the same way that there's days where like my husband would be like, hey, do you want to do this? No,
Mhm.
not at all. Or clients will be like, hey, do you want to meet and talk about this? No. Not to say never.
Right.
Not right now.
Yeah.
But being able to have a choice of being very, very honest,
Mhm.
everybody around me has helped also because it's like, I think we worry so much about what everybody's feeling and thinking about what we're doing
Mhm.
that we're not honest with ourselves or true to ourselves. And so that's
Amen.
the other thing for me this year is just being able to say, I don't want to do that, or I don't want my company to do that, or
Yeah.
I don't want to work with you.
Yeah.
You seem nice, but no, and being very honest.
Yep. To
So,
me, that's the ultimate success, right? The freedom of choice. And, when we can see it that way, um, it just puts us into a different space where different opportunities tend to find us. And, a lot of those different things when we're in that energy of, you know, I get to choose, that energy of choice, I think creates more aligned choices.
yeah, I agree. So, any other successes or lessons learned that you would want to share?
I mean, we could sit here all day
Oh,
long.
yeah. I
But I
wish that I
feel
could
like
start my business and just call it what not to do in business and
right,
see if I can
right.
start doing that.
Again, this is the final thing that I will leave you with as far as just like a lessons learned. And I think you kind of alluded to this, but I'm going to say it a little bit differently. Like measuring your success up against, or your story, your experience up against anybody else's is never going to serve you well. Right? Like saying like, oh, well, you've been doing this for this long and you make this amount of money, or you've been, like I do that to myself all the time. I'm on like iteration number 8 of business. Right. And there's some people who are still doing the same shit that they were doing back in 2019. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? Right. Like, why couldn't I just get it right the first time? But again, stacking my story up against somebody else's, like there's nothing to be gained from that. Right. In a positive way.
Yeah.
When we're comparing ourselves to somebody else, we never, it either puts us in an egotistical place of I'm better than you, right? Or it puts us in a place of what's wrong with me. And that's never going to serve you. And I think that that's probably one of the most important lessons, especially online. Like you said, there's so much noise. There's so many people screaming at you about what you should be doing and how much money you should be making and what it should look like and that it's very easy to compare yourself to those people. And like I said, either put yourself in a seat of, superiority, which isn't really a good thing either, right? Or putting yourself in a, what is wrong with me? Why can't I get it right? Neither one of those places are creative places which really allow for growth. So I would say that that's probably one of the most important lessons and it's super duper cliche, but it's like the run your own race, right? Like your kids swim, like they're not, you probably have been taught and trained to like not look side by side. First of all, you're gonna lose time, right? And second of all, all you're gonna do is mess with your head. So swim your own damn race. Like that's really, I'd say that that's like ultimately the biggest thing to kind of put a bow on the whole conversation is swim your own damn race.
Absolutely. We've said that. We've literally said, like, you have that phrase, stay in your lane. Like we mean it. Like,
yes,
literally.
Yeah.
Everything you pay attention to is in your lane.
Yep.
What's happening 3 lanes over? If you can see that, you've already lost,
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. So where can people find you?
Sure. So Facebook is my home. I hang out on Facebook at Ryann Dowdy. You can connect with me there. Our website is theconnectionagency.com. Those are probably the 2 places. We do have a podcast. If you're a podcast listener, we just rebranded it called Sales Self-Talk. So if you are the type of person that likes to consume content and hear stories, we do a lot of this. Tanisha was my first guest because she's amazing. So those are the places I would say, you can check out the website, find me on Facebook, or listen to the podcast.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
And for anything related to SVS, of course, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are live on YouTube right now, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So, absolutely check out any of these recordings. If you're catching us on the replay, feel free to still ask questions if you need to. But I genuinely just cannot thank you enough for taking some time and joining me today. And I already knew we were going to have a great conversation. So I can't wait to see what comes of this. And, and I see some people thanking us and everything. So I appreciate you. And thank you everyone for tuning in, and we will talk to you soon.